Well, hello there, beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast, The Sara Show. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 3. I'm really excited for today's show because we are going to be talking about how to become an actor now. Before you click away, first of all, that's actually fine. You know, we all have stuff to do. I won't judge you for it. But I do encourage you to listen to this, even if you don't want to be an actor, because what I've learned from going from being a medical doctor to being an actress is that these principles apply to everything. Like, people will say to me, oh my gosh, what a big difference, what a big career change. You were a doctor and now you're an actress. And I'm like, funnily enough, the principles are exactly the same. And I think they're really key principles that we apply when trying to do anything new, specifically start a new career. So if you're thinking of a change, I still recommend that you listen to this, because what I'm going to try and do is break it down. There's 4 different points that I want to make, but I'm going to break them all down into the principle of it that applies to everything. And then I'm also going to talk about how that applies practically in the acting world, because I know that for me, coming to acting with just no connections, no experience, like, actually insane. Like, who am I and who does that? Literally, who does that? Anyway, yeah, I came into acting with absolutely just not a clue, as you will see as we go through this podcast. So it's a safe space, you guys. It is a safe space. And for it to be a safe space for me, I need you to also just not judge me when I say when I confess about how ignorant I was about the acting world when I decided to be an actress. But I really do believe as well that ignorance can be bliss. Because sometimes if you try to learn everything and know everything before you try, you'll just get so overwhelmed. So, you know, it's okay to not know what on earth you're doing. Like, you can figure it out as you go. One of my favourite sayings is that everything is figure-outable. So with that in mind, as I confess things about how little I knew when I first got into this, let's just let it be. There might be some things that, I'm still learning, which I will discuss as well. But I think it's a safe space. I want to share what I've learned in the last 3 years of going from being a doctor to being an actress, and I think it will benefit you no matter what you're trying to do in your life. So there are many things that are consistent between the acting world and the medical world, but practically speaking, there are lots of things that are different. So in medicine, like, it's very regimented, right? You do your degree, you do this exam. Like, there is a very clear step-by-step pathway on how you go from being a non-medic to being a consultant. It is highly regulated by the GMC, by all these different bodies to keep medical practice safe, which is amazing and brilliant. However, with acting, the risk is a little lower, so it's a lot less regimented, to the point where I remember when I first got into the industry and I was like learning about things, I was like, this is kind of like the wild, wild west. Everyone's just out here YOLOing, doing their thing. Like, I was like, give me instructions, like, teach me how to go from A to Z. Just give me the map and I'll do it. I'll work hard. I will get there. But the truth is that there are many different ways. And because of that, it means that you will probably hear a lot of conflicting advice. Like, I would hear one thing from one teacher, another thing from another teacher, and it sounded like they were conflicting. But the truth is, or what I'm learning and did learn, is that both things can be true, that there are actually many ways to do things. And so the more information you gather, just hold it with an open hand. Like, don't hold yourself to, oh, this is exactly the path I have to go down. Like, just be open with your career and with your direction, with the steps that you take. Be open to trying new things when building your career. Because I think that lots of different things can be true. And if you get really stuck on this is the exact pathway that I have to take, then it can be a bit confusing. And as I share my story, just know that my pathway is not the only pathway. However, my pathway, as someone who is an actress and has never had an agent, is quite different from a lot of other people's. That is why I'm really keen to put it out there, because if you're like me 3 years ago and you're like, I don't even know if this is possible, I just want to share that it is possible. It is possible to be a self-represented working actress. It is possible to go from knowing nothing to knowing enough to book jobs. And I don't say that with any pride at all. I just want to encourage people, like, literally still on the journey, no judgment. Also, last disclaimer before we get into it is that I think that foolish optimism can be such a superpower, and it can really protect you emotionally. So if there is like foolish optimism that you hear in this podcast, I encourage you to try not to look down on it, but to step into it, because ignorance really can be bliss. And so, if you allow yourself to naively believe that you can do it, or what some might call naively, life is just so much more fun. Life is so much more fun when you allow yourself to believe that it's possible to achieve your dreams, and that you really can, be an actress or be a singer or be whatever it is you want to do, because the truth is that you can. And if you have a can-do attitude, it tends to go, I don't know, in my experience, it's so much more fun, and it also just goes a lot better. So yeah, those are my disclaimers. Let's get straight into the chat of how to become an actress. So my first step is to learn how to act. You have to learn. When you want to do something new, the chances are you're starting with no knowledge, and so you've got to learn. And the principle of this step one that applies to everything is that I think that it's really good to be okay with looking dumb. I think we all have a certain level of ego, right? A certain sense of who we are and our sense of self. And while that can be beneficial, it can also be a bit dangerous, because if we cling on to that really tightly, then it can be hard to pivot, right? If you know yourself as, I am an engineer, that is what I do, then to suddenly see yourself as a musician can be really difficult. And especially when you're coming from an academic career to a creative idea, it might be that you've developed quite an ego, right? If you've been working as a medical doctor, it might be that you're like, oh, I've worked my way up to being a consultant, and now I'm at the bottom of the food chain of the creative industries. And first of all, I want to encourage you that, all life experience is helpful in acting. I think all life experience is helpful in all careers, to be honest. I always thought that people who did medicine postgraduate just brought with them so much confidence, so much more self-assurance in what they were doing, and so much more experience of other walks of life. And I think that is a huge benefit. So don't underestimate what you bring to the table, number one. But number two, I think that it's okay. It's actually okay to learn and to look a bit dumb and to feel a bit foolish. There will be moments when you're learning where you just get completely humbled. And I honestly think that is kind of good for us. I think it's good for the soul to just not take yourself too seriously. And I think it applies to everything, no matter what you want to do, whether you want to go from medicine to acting or acting to medicine. There were times as a medical student, I can remember it viscerally, you guys. Oh my goodness. Any doctor can tell you that when you're a medical student, right, there are times where you are so aware of your body, you're shadowing on the ward, okay? So you're a medical student, you're in uni, but you've gone to the hospital to learn how to be a doctor, right? And you're following one of the doctors around the ward as they do their ward round. And you enter, say, a patient's room or a bay, and you are so aware of your body because you just don't know what to do with your own limbs. You're like, oh, I'm in the way. Am I in the way? Do I say something? Do I smile? Do I not smile? Do I make eye contact? Do I not? I can viscerally remember being a medical student and being so uncomfortable on what the heck do I do with my body? And it was because I was just learning. I was just learning how to review a patient. Where to stand, where will I be in the way and where will I not be in the way? And so there's a certain discomfort that comes with being a beginner that applies to everything. And I think that it's really good to just accept that and to know that that's okay. And that's actually a really beautiful place to be. Because one thing that they tell us as you learn to be a doctor as well is that you'll be a lifelong learner. And I love that. It is an identity that I've really chosen to try to adopt. That one thing about me, one thing I like to say about myself, I will learn. I love learning new things. And that applies to every area of life, whether it is your relationship. If you're in a marriage for 20 years, you'll still learn new things about your partner in the 21st year. Whether you're a parent, your child is constantly growing and changing, you have to be able to learn. And it might be that the techniques used to discipline them when they were younger just don't work anymore. In medicine, people are doing research, we're learning new things, there will be new pathways, new drugs. So choosing to live your life from a chosen identity of I learn, in my career, I learn new things is so, so powerful, because it is dangerous to have any other belief, right? If you're the consultant who can't possibly learn how to use a new drug or a new surgical technique, then it might be that you can't keep up with the gold standard. So something we have in medicine is the gold standard. So it is what we believe is the absolute best treatment, or what we have proven through research and trial and error, what the scientific field has proven is the best known treatment for a certain condition. And that might change, right? When you learn something new, that will change. And so to be someone in your profession who is able to learn new things and able to pivot is so important, especially in this modern age where things are constantly changing, where, we've got AI coming out and people are terrified about what AI will mean for them, especially in the creative industry. If we step back and we're like, right, I am someone who is able to learn. Maybe that involves learning to live in a world with AI. Maybe that involves learning to use AI in a way that benefits you. Just having this kind of open mind. And to some people, especially now that I've mentioned AI, that will be a little jarring, especially to creatives who are like, no, bin AI, bin AI. I don't even know how I got into talking about AI, but it is so important to approach life with a mentality of I can learn new things. And so as you go to change careers, you take your ego off and you leave it at the door. There have been moments where I'm doing some animal studies on the floor in an acting class, and I just have like this existential moment of how did I get here? How did I get here? Like what choices led me to this moment where I'm a lizard, and I really believe I'm a lizard, and I'm doing things in a lizard way. But I think that is just beautiful, and I think it's good for the soul. So as you become an actor, as whatever it is you're doing, you have to start from a position of being willing, being able to learn. Sanford Meisner, a really popular and well-known acting teacher. That's probably the worst description I could give such a legend. But he's famous for saying that it takes 20 years to become an actor. And I think that is probably true, right? That, we need to keep learning. It takes so long to learn these things. So putting yourself in a position where you are willing and able to learn is so important, no matter what it is that you're trying to do in life, whether it's improve a relationship, whether it's learn to sing, whether it's become an engineer, whether it's become an actor. And so then that's the principle of step one of learning. Now, practically speaking, for me, as a doctor trying to be an actress, I started going to acting school. So I enlisted and enrolled in a part-time acting school. We would do 2 3-hour lessons a week. Practically speaking, it cost me £800 per term. So it was, what's 8 times 3? £2,400 a year. So it wasn't no money. It was a significant amount of money. So I didn't do a degree. I would love, oh my goodness, you guys, I would love a degree. I would love to go to university and study drama full time. It's just very expensive. But as a very Nigerian daughter, you guys, I love a degree. But you don't necessarily need a degree in order to be an actor. I think they're amazing, but it's not like a prerequisite in the same way that it is for medicine, right? With medicine, if you want to be a doctor, you got to get into uni. That's a completely different, this is what I mean by how the principles are the same, but practically it's different. So for acting, you don't necessarily have to have a degree. I chose to go to an acting school to pay for regular lessons because I love a bit of order, and I think it's really nice to have someone who knows more than you plan how you're going to learn how to act. But that said, you guys, there are so many ways of learning to act. There are YouTube videos, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm just going to tell you guys, a lot of acting school and learning to act is a lot of the time is spent sat down watching the other people in your class act. And some students can get frustrated with that, right? They're like, no, I want to be on stage and I need to, or I want to do my monologue and I want to be practicing. And we feel the needs that we need to be physically doing it in order to be learning. But actually you learn so much by watching other people act, watching the feedback they receive, watching them try again. You learn so much, you guys. And there is a plethora. There are so many videos on YouTube about acting. And so don't let money, I don't want to say don't let money get in the way, but just know there are cheaper options, right? If you can't afford a uni degree, if you can't afford a part-time acting class, there is so much free stuff on YouTube that can teach you how to act. Of course, you have to put it up on its feet at some point, but you will still learn so much just by watching these 3-hour videos, this 3-hour Meisner masterclass on YouTube. Like, there is so much free information on the internet. So definitely utilize that. There are books. So one of my accent teachers recommended, what is it called? I feel like it's on my shelf somewhere. I don't have it in my hand, but I will try and put a link in the description of this podcast, wherever it goes up, on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, all of that. But there are books that you can read about acting, and they are amazing. They are so, so amazing. I've got an Audible book of Stella Adler. I don't know if I've pronounced that right, but just a fantastic actress and acting teacher. And I listen to that audiobook and I learn certain principles and I try it when I'm prepping for the next thing. So yes, there's acting school, practically speaking, but there's also so much you can do. There is so much you can do. At the moment, I am still learning to act. You know, it takes 20 years. I'm only 3 down. And even then, like, I will forever be learning, because that is who I've decided that I am. I want to be someone who's constantly learning, constantly improving. And so at the moment, I do an acting lesson every week. While I'm in a job, I tend to, like, when you're in a show, it's a lot, right? It takes a lot of time. But you can still be learning while in a show. You're still learning, you're still putting something on its feet, you're still watching other people act, you're still watching the director change things when you're in the rehearsal stage. Like, that is also a space where you can be learning. So lifelong learner, 100% recommend. It is something that is drilled into us as doctors. And I believe that everyone, no matter what you do, whether you're an artist, whether you're an electrician, if you take on that identity of being a lifelong learner, it is so, so powerful. And it really does just mean that you can, like, continue enjoying the subject that you're doing. One thing I learned in school, right? Oh, you guys, how ironic that I low-key miss school, having spent years wanting to just be done with school. But anything studied in detail is so interesting. It is so, so interesting. So if you approach what you're doing with a thirst for knowledge and you go into detail, it is so much more fun. And that's probably really nerdy of me, but I really mean that. Step 1 of how to become an actor is to learn. The second thing you need to do in order to become an actor is to act. You have to actually do it. Now, I talked a lot about taking action on the second episode of my podcast called Taking the Leap. So I won't go into detail in terms of take action, stop thinking about it, just get up and do it. That's what we have to do. But the second point of acting is very much that. You have to actually act. Now, the principle of this that I think applies to everything that you do, whether it is raising a child, baking a cake, or being a doctor, is that you just have to do it, right? If I cast my mind back to when I was a medical student, we would shadow on the ward rounds, as I mentioned earlier. We'd be shadowing doctors, seeing patients. So I'm there, baby student Sarah, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, following around this amazing doctor who's seeing patients. There comes a time when that doctor turns around and says to you, oh, you can now see this patient. And it's terrifying. You're like, oh my goodness, what do I say? What do I, da, 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 da. You've done all the study and the theory. Now you have to actually put it on its feet and do it. And you just have to do it. It is in the doing that we can actually learn and see, and it's, doing the thing is a big part of learning. It's not just about sitting back. You have to actually do the thing. You have to see the patient, do the ward round, document the ward round, not just the theory of it, like physically do the thing. And I used to be an athlete, so whether you know my story or not, but I am from South Wales. I represented Wales as a child and teenager, and I was an international athlete, and I took it very seriously, you guys. Like, it's still a big love of mine. I love athletics, and in my mind, that was everything growing up. That was a big part of my life. And so as an adult now, so many of the principles that I learned as an athlete, I now apply to my life as an adult. And one of those things that I learned as an athlete is that you can train, right? You can train, but the way that you get better at winning championships is by competing in championships. The way that you get better at performing under pressure, executing from start to finish of that race, is by trying, is by entering the competition and racing people. You simply cannot simulate that level of pressure in training. You can try, you can go to the track and you can race against your training buddies and stuff. But the pressure of the Welsh Championship final that I used to feel, the only way to get better at dealing with that was to step out there and feel it and to actually do the thing. So I think it's really important when it comes to doing something new, that you allow yourself to truly do the thing, as much as you are able, do the thing. And so now we come on to acting. Practically speaking, how do you just go about an act? I thought we've just said that Meisner said it takes 20 years to learn to act. And, if everyone waited until they'd had 20 years of learning to act before they acted, we would have no child actors, We wouldn't have the amazing performances of Home Alone, So we need to be doing the thing. And I think when it comes to acting, some actors can go a long time between jobs, and it's really easy to lose confidence and to lose skill. So by making acting a regular rhythm of your life, that no matter what job you've got, no matter what you're doing, you still find time to act. And not find time. I don't believe in finding time. We create time. We prioritize things. So if we ensure that we always find time to act, then that can be avoided. We don't have to lose confidence and de-skill. We can just do the thing that we've said that we love. So practically speaking, whether you're putting on a show with friends, whether you're joining a local community, whether you're getting a script from the library, putting it up on its feet and filming it on your phone, whether you're recording self-tapes that aren't even going anywhere because you don't have an audition, but you still create a character, you do the prep work and you act and you film it on your phone, that all counts, and I think is so, so important. And one of my acting teachers told me that just act every week. Make sure that you are acting, make sure that you are doing the thing. And so practically speaking, what that means is you could join a local community where you put on shows. You don't have to be paid in order to act. You can act for free. You can put on a show at your local church. You can write something. You can get a script from a library and put that on at your local pub. Just create opportunities to act. Don't wait for them to be given to you. Just find a way to act. They don't have to be paid. You don't have to be getting money for it in order to act. And you don't need permission. That is one of the beautiful things about acting and the creative industry. As someone who's done or is still doing, the medical thing, the doctor thing, you need permission to practice being a doctor. You need that legal permission. But when it comes to acting, you don't have to do a very good job in order to be allowed to act. There's very low risk. Just go and act. The only risk is the made-up risk in your ego. So we can just let that go. We can let go of any need to be seen as being amazing, and we can just do the thing and go and act. Number 3 of how to become an actor, which I think is probably something people have been very much looking forward to. Well, it's something people have asked me about, and it's how to book a job. Oh my goodness, how to book a job. What a question. Can I just tell you, to start with, before I get into the principle and the practical of this third point, when I first started acting, you guys, I didn't really think about booking a job. And I'm not saying that to sound holier than thou. I'm saying that because I was just ignorant. I really didn't, guys. I did not know it. But then as I got into my acting school, one of the first teachers that we had in our screen class was like, this is how you book a job, and was telling us how to book a job. And I was like, whoa there, sailor. whoa, I just got here. Like, what are you talking about? But I'm going to teach you or share with you some of the stuff that I have learned from him and from other teachers as well on how to book a job, because I was so ignorant of this. I was so ignorant. Okay, so the principle of this third point that applies to whatever it is that you're trying to do, specifically career-wise, is to apply. You've got to apply for a job. You got to put your face out there. You've got to put your face out there. And this applies for so many different things, right? If you want to meet the love of your life, go outside. Leave the house. I'm over it. We're not doing this anymore. You're not sitting there in your comfies because you're comfy. Of course you're comfy. But unless you want to marry a thief or your Deliveroo driver, which, could happen, unless you want to limit your choice to that, you need to actually put yourself out there and start going on dates. You have to apply. You have to, be out in the world. You've got to apply for a job. And I think this is something that people, myself included in the past, and it's something I'm still working through, but we can really get in our heads about. It is insane how many people don't apply for jobs. And I'm not putting any shade out there. I know the job industry can be horrendous, right? But what we tend to do is that we will think about it for a long time. We will read the description and we will decide without actually applying, like practically applying, without submitting our CV, without getting in touch with the company or the manager or the director or going over and talking to the person across the bar without, before we smile at the person that we fancy, we will decide in our heads that the answer is no. I heard a saying that changed my life. It was never say no to yourself. Never say no to yourself. So if I'm applying for a job, if I look online and I see a job that I want, right? It is not my job to decide whether or not I get the job. I cannot express this enough. I cannot overstate this. It is not my job to decide whether or not I'm qualified enough for that job, no matter what field it's in. And we do this all the time, right? Someone will see the list of things needed for the job and they will decide, oh, I'm underqualified, especially women. If you're a woman listening to this, just know that men are so much more likely to apply for a job that they're not qualified for than women. Women will see it and be like, oh, I don't have this or I don't have that, and they just don't apply. Please hear this when I say this. If you, right, don't think you're qualified for the job that is being advertised, what makes you think you are qualified to decide whether or not you're qualified for the job being advertised? Do you see what I mean? Like, there's someone whose job it is to hire people. They are the ones who are quite literally in the position, holding the position of the decider. So decider is up here. Decider is on, say, level 10 of qualifications, and they're deciding who gets the level 5 job. If you think you're level 1, why are you trying to do a level 10 position of making the decision? Your only job is to apply, to put yourself out there. The same thing comes to dating, for example. If you see someone that you like, instead of looking away, not making eye contact, because you're like, oh my gosh, they'll never fancy me, they'll never be interested. It's not your job. It's up to them to decide. It's up to them to decide to just look, make eye contact, smile, go up and say hi. Lol, I say as someone who has never done that, but I do smile. And to me, in my world, that is applying. Why am I talking about dating? I'm trying to make this as widely applicable because I really do believe that the principles are widely applicable. Never say no to yourself. Your job is to apply, not to decide. From my experience in acting so far, there have been roles that I've applied for that I didn't really think that I was qualified for. I didn't think that I fit that role perfectly. And then I got the role, and what I came to learn was that the vision of the play was different to what I had thought it was, right? Because the director and the casting director, they know the vision, they know what they're looking for. And so then I'm doing this job and 2 weeks in, I'm like, oh yeah, that was actually a really good casting decision, right? Because I wasn't qualified, I'm not the casting director. I'd have no idea exactly what they're looking for. I haven't been privy to all of the research and the conversations that the director and the writer and the casting director have done together. So if I had looked at the description and, understood it or thought I understood it and decided not to apply, I would have deprived them of getting a good actor for that job. I would have deprived them of that because I was trying to do the job of the casting director, and that's not my job. There have been other jobs, right? Other acting jobs where I've thought I was so qualified. I was like, yup, that's me. Whoa, just write my name on the ad, guys. Like, if you want me to be in your play, just email me directly. Like, why are you playing hard to get? I've seen a role, I've been like, yeah, that's for me. Applied for it. And they've been like, no, you're not a good fit. There was one role where I applied, got rejected. They told me I wasn't a good fit for it. But then they gave me another role because they were like, oh, you're not good for that, but your voice is perfect for this other thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And do you see what I mean? It wasn't my job to decide. My only job is to apply. And so it's truly one of the best, most relieving sayings I've ever heard is never say no to yourself. It is not your job to say no. It is your job to ask the person who actually has that job and apply for it. So practically speaking, when it comes to acting, how do you apply for jobs? So the first job I ever got, I'd like to start by saying when it comes to getting jobs in acting, you need to audition. Now, you might think, well, duh, guys, oh my goodness, I was so ignorant. The first job, or one of the first like real, like official acting jobs that I got, a casting director basically said to me, hey, I've got a job for you. Guys, I thought I had the job. I was like, oh my God, amazing, I've got a job. I didn't realize. And then when they were like, oh, you've got to send a tape, I was like, oh, my bad. I'd literally been saying to people, I've got a job. I didn't realize. So just to put that out there, you know, you've got an interview, you've got an audition process. I don't know how I missed that, but I really want to drum home that you can start off incredibly ignorant and still, you know, still be an actor. How beautiful, how wonderful that we can learn and grow. So practically speaking, when it comes to acting, there are many ways to apply for a job. So there are open castings. So if you search on Twitter, on social media channels, if you search for open castings, if you search online, there are some jobs where they are literally just looking for a person to match the description. I think it's really important to remember what acting is. Someone can have a character in their head and they need that character to exist somewhere, right? So a writer might have written a character and you might be exactly that role. And for some projects, they don't mind if you haven't had any previous acting experience. I know a casting director who does a lot of street casting. So as in they intentionally book people who have never acted before. So you don't actually have to have previous experience to book a job. So open castings, you can find them advertised on social media. So if you follow a load of different casting directors, they will post when they're looking for someone and they will say, you know, email with a picture of yourself, all of this. So just search for open castings. There are so many jobs that are advertised that way. One thing that I did was, practically speaking, just to share my experience, was that I went to an open casting. I think it was for Was it for The Lion King? I went to an open casting. I think it was for The Lion King. Can't remember what musical it was for. But basically, I did that open casting. And so I was in front of these like hugely esteemed casting directors, writers, all of these amazing people. I sang my song. And then they called me back for something else. They called me back. Like the number of knock-on auditions that I got from an open audition was insane. Because they were just like, oh, I remember her. And so then that was like one application turned into literally like 10, 15 other invitations to audition. So just know that in this modern day and age, some of the barriers we put up, we've actually created them. And there are a lot of ways that people try to take that, like intentionally reduce the barrier of entry for acting. They want more people in the industry. And it's really important to think of it from a casting director's point of view as well. Of like, I've watched so many like interviews of casting directors and stuff. As I've told you, like I love YouTube, I love learning, like I want to know everything about this industry. I really love it. So I've watched lots of interviews of casting directors and they'll basically be like, we want you to succeed. Like they'll have had a really long day. They say that they'll have had a really long day auditioning people. The one thing they want is for someone to walk in and smash it and be exactly what they're looking for. So just know that when you show up, when you apply, you're potentially doing the casting director a really great favor. Like if you are what they're looking for, then you've made their day by like showing up and applying. So never be afraid of putting yourself out there. You're not wasting their time. You're presenting them an option, and that's what they want, right? They want options so that they can choose the best fit. Another way of applying for jobs is to go on websites. So there are websites like Mandy, which you can sign up for, where they will list different jobs and you can apply for the jobs there. Other websites like Spotlight, which there is a barrier to entry. You can read about it on their website. But then once you're on that website, you can see a huge list of different opportunities and you can put yourself forward for them. So there are many, many ways. Another way is to email directors directly and say, hi, my name is this, that, this. If you have a project that you're looking to create, then think of me. You can email casting directors directly. You can get in touch with theatres and tell them, hey, I'm an actor. If you're putting something on, you need actors, yada, yada. Like, there are rules, and there are probably people listening to this who are like, oh my goodness, Sarah, no, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work. That's not going to work. But in my humble time so far of acting, every now and then, the thing that someone says will never work, of like, just email this person and ask them. Every now and then it works. So for me, I'm like, what have you got to lose? What have you got to lose? And I know that might be a bit rogue. And there are some people probably listening to this being like, please don't email me, like a director thinking, please don't email me. But like, it's actually not that deep. Like, don't spam people, don't harass them. Like, that's not cool. But if you just introduce yourself, like the worst they can do is ignore you. it's really like, just put yourself out there, apply for jobs. So hopefully I've convinced you of the principle of never say no to yourself, apply for jobs that you're not qualified for, because you're actually not qualified to say whether or not you're qualified for it. I think that's such a sermon. Such a sermon. Once I realized that I was doing that, I was like, what am I doing? I've been out here saying, oh, I can't go for this because I'm not good enough. Girl, you ain't got a clue. You actually haven't got a clue. Like, put yourself out there. Like, stop assuming the role of the manager. You're not the manager. You're the applicant. Just be the applicant. Okay, anyway, that was number 3. Number 4 of how to be an actor. And this is like a very basic introduction, you guys. I hope it's helpful. It's to get an agent now. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm nervous to talk about this one because I don't have an agent. I've never had an agent, you guys. Okay, right. Maybe I should start, instead of starting with the principle, I'll just start with an explanation. Again, I didn't know ish. I was blissfully ignorant about the industry. So I didn't know you needed an agent when I first started acting. I just wanted to act, so I didn't know you needed an agent. I didn't know. I didn't get it. And then when I found out about agents, I was like, oh, I don't get it. Why can't you just apply for a job yourself? But then everyone was like, Sarah, you need an agent, get an agent. And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I should get an agent, but I didn't really know how to get an agent. And then the agents that did see certain, school productions, I remember being in my class, right? I'm in this class of, say, 12 of us. 10 people got signed to this agency, apart from me and one other girl. Like, I was not picked. I literally wasn't chosen. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just carry on. I appreciate that you might think, Sarah, you don't have enough experience to talk about getting an agent. However, I'm going to talk about it anyway because it's a Sara show and I can do what I want. And also because I've learned from seeing other people's experiences, and agents, I will just say, are amazing. They are amazing. They do so much. They work so hard and they are worth every penny. But let me come back to the principle of getting an agent and how this can apply to you outside of the world of acting. I once heard this saying in this book, and I didn't like it the first time I heard it. It was in a book that I read called Failing Forward, an amazing book that I recommend to so many people. My acting teacher recommended it to me, and it's one of the best things I did was to actually do what they say. Also, I should put that back on learning. Like, when you're learning, by the way, if someone who knows more than you tells you, like, gives you advice, like, try to actually take it and do it. There are so many things that I did that worked because my teacher told me to do it. Because sometimes you can listen to stuff and not actually put it to practice. So my teacher said, this book is good, listen to it. So I did it. I got the book, I listened to it. I'm more of an audible listener than a physical reader, although I'm trying to get back to paper books. But I listened to it and it was amazing, changed my life. But one of the things that the writer says in this book is that everything that you want is a relationship away. And I didn't love it. I was like, oh, that kind of sounds like you're like using people. Like, it wasn't really sitting well with me. But he goes on to explain it. And he essentially says, relationships are everything. And I'm like, I don't know. I wasn't sure. I wasn't convinced. But I loved this book and I listened to it like 4 or 5 times. And I came to agree that, oh my goodness, that is so, so true. And the way that this applies is that people always talk about networking. And that was another term that for whatever reason I was just uncomfortable with. Because I was like, oh, I don't want to, I feel weird going up to someone and being like, hi, I'm networking and I'm chatting to you, but you obviously know that I want something, and it just feels transactional and like unnatural and like a bit of a, just like not very nice. Like, I didn't like that. However, that was, and I'm just explaining, that was my guttural reaction. I think networking, of course, like practically speaking, it's an amazing thing. It's really important. But what I want to do is if you think of networking and you think of that saying that I said, everything you want is a relationship away, and you feel a certain kind of way, you don't love it, don't worry, I get it. I totally felt like that as well. So for me, the way that I've come to understand it better and sit with it in a way that I feel joyful about and peaceful about, I believe, I'm a Christian, I believe that life is about love. It's about loving God and loving each other. And so it kind of makes sense to me that everything is about relationships. But then when you think of it on a practical level, if I need my hair done, I need a hairdresser to do that hair, or I need someone who makes shampoo to sell me the shampoo. If I'm hungry, I need some food. I need, in this modern day and age, I need a shopkeeper to sell me some food. We need each other. We need each other for like everything, right? So when it says everything that you want is a relationship away, if I say to my friend, oh, I'm looking to buy a car, and then my friend says, oh, I know someone who's selling a car, maybe you'd be interested. That friend has just helped me to get what I want, and they've helped their other friend to get what I want. And that doesn't mean that I've used that friend to get a car. It was just the fact that it was via this relationship that I was able to find that car. And so for me, that helps it sit a little better with me in terms of networking is just openly socializing with the comfortable and confident knowledge of what you and other people bring to the table. So if you're at a networking event for acting, knowing that you as an actress can bring a writer's script to life. If you're at a networking event as a writer, knowing that you as a writer can write an amazing script that a director has just been praying would land on their desk. If you're at a networking event as an agent, knowing that you as an agent can get that actor their next big break. Like, it is such, like, we live in such a beautiful world. It's like the ecosystem of it, right? The ecosystem of the industry that you're in, whether it is medicine, because the same thing still happens in medicine, I've been working with someone on a job and they were like, oh, they're actually stepping down from their other job and they're looking for another junior doctor to take over. And so I'm like, oh, cool, like, I'm pretty available. And they introduced me to the consultant and I end up, I'm qualified, that I'm what they're looking for. And I ended up getting a job that way. And I think that it's really, it can be a really beautiful thing in many areas of life. And for example, relationship-wise, so basically the way that I met my boyfriend was that I was set up through a friend. And it wasn't just set up through a friend, it was, I went to my friend's 30th birthday party. I met her friend of 20 years. Her friend of 20 years then went to visit her sister, went to church with her sister and met this guy. And was like, oh, I know someone I could set you up with. And they set him up with me. They gave him my number. And so everything you want is a relationship away. Like, I didn't go to my friend's 30th thinking, I'm going to meet the man of my dreams at this party. No, I went to celebrate her. Of course I did. And it just so happened that through this network of relationships, I ended up being in a wonderful relationship. And so I think this does apply to everyone in terms of getting an agent. So an agent is basically someone with relationships. Now, to all the agents listening to this, I'm not trying to undermine what you do. They do so much more than that. But to put this on like a principle level, knowing someone, knowing people is so beneficial. And you should never underestimate who you know, and you should never underestimate what it means for someone to know you. There are things you bring to the table. There are things other people bring to the table. And so I think I love this part because I think it's just such a good reminder of like, just be nice to people, like smile at people, be confident in who you are and what you do. Like when you introduce yourself, like say you're an actor, be okay with the fact that you're looking for work, like be open about that. And just, yeah, be nice, because everything you want is a relationship away. And it's not about using people to get what you want. It's about acknowledging how much people bring to the table and how much beauty we pour into each other's lives. And that is a symbiotic thing, you know, it's the circle of life. Like it's a beautiful thing. So that's the principle of it. I hope that's made sense. And now, practically speaking, agents are amazing. In acting, what you have is you have like directors, people looking for actors, and then you've got loads of actors who want the job, right? Agents basically are a bridge between the two. So there are some projects where they literally will not put it out online. There are some projects that I, because I don't have an agent at the moment, I don't get to see on the websites that I'm on because they will only be shown to agents. So agents will then recommend their clients, their actors, for these jobs. They take a commission for that, so they'll take anything between like, I don't know, I think it's like 10 and 20%. It depends. Chat to other actors, chat to agencies. Like if you're looking for an agent, definitely chat to lots lots of different agencies and stuff like that. And yeah, they basically help you get a job. So practically speaking, it is really, really good to get an agent. I would love a great agent. I just think that for me, it got to the point where people were like comforting me. Like my lovely, beautiful friends at acting school, they were like, oh, don't worry, Sarah, like someone will sign you soon, like hang in there. And like, because I had been so ignorant, I hadn't entered the school with this dream of getting an agent because I was just too dumb to know that that's what I should have been hoping for. And so there wasn't a huge emotional attachment when I didn't get signed. Like, don't get me wrong, when people say that's what you should want, of course I started wanting it. Of course I was like, oh, this is what I should be aiming for. I want to impress this agent. But it wasn't like, I didn't cry about it. I kind of was just like, oh, I guess I'll just try and get work other ways. And so the other ways that I'd heard about how to get work in terms of emailing people, meeting people, I would just be doing those things. And it did end up that I, practically speaking, was receiving a similar amount of invitations to audition as my friends who did have agents. And so I didn't massively stress about it. So I think definitely try and get an agent. And this is me, as you know, talking to myself. If there's any agents listening to this and you're amazing and you think we could work together, drop me an email. I'm, as you might be able to tell, listening to this podcast, like I'm on this journey, love it. Let's work together. However, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I don't have an agent, that means I can't be an actor, it's just not true. It's just not true. Like, agents do amazing work, but you can also still be an actor without an agent. And I think that's a huge thing in acting, is like, and something that I'm trying to do more and learn to do, I'm writing my play at the moment, is like creating your own work. You can literally create your own work. Like Issa Rae, the president of Barbie Land, the amazing writer, actor, producer, director. She started off making stuff on YouTube. Like, she had that show, Awkward Black Girl. I remember like watching that with my sisters when I was very young. My older sister watched it more because she was more that age range. But I remember seeing that show. She was just out there with a camera, a script and a dream and making her show. And now look at her. So I think one of the beautiful things about acting is that you don't have to wait for permission. You really don't. You can go out there, you can put yourself out there and you can do the thing. And the truth is that applies to so many more areas of life. Like, you can apply for jobs, you can say hello to people, you can put yourself out there, and the rules. One thing I really have loved about going into this industry is just seeing how it's more just about the work that you do, that you can just learn to act, enjoy it, keep doing that, and by God's grace, like, the opportunities will come. And having patience, having a PMA, love a positive mental attitude, like just enjoying it and remembering why you're doing it, is such a fun thing to do. And I'm not trying to play down the difficulties. Like, obviously, there have been times when I have had absolutely horrendous auditions, you guys. I don't even remembering them makes me feel a certain way. But there have been times when I've had horrendous auditions and I felt sad and I've been gutted that I didn't get a part. And you know what? You cry a bit if you need to. You pick yourself up and you carry on. You reflect, which is what that book talks about, that book about failing forward. It talks about the cycle of failure, that you try something new, you fail at it, you reflect, you make adjustments, and you try again. And that is such a cycle in acting that I'm really trying to put into action. And I think it's something that we can take into all of our lives, that you just got to keep trying. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking there because I've been talking for a while. And low-key, I have an audition tomorrow, you guys. I kind of need to save my voice. But she says after she's been talking for 50 minutes. But thank you so much for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this podcast. Let me know. Can you let me know in the comments? Number one, if you're still listening. Thank you so much for making it to the end. But let me know if you're trying to be an actor or if you're not. And if you're not trying to be an actor, let me know if any of these things, if you feel like any of these principles apply to your area of life and how so, because I'd be really interested to read your comments and reply. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening and for joining me on this podcast. I really, really love it. It's so much fun. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to discuss things. And I also feel like I'm learning so much. Like, when I'm writing things out, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's so true. And this is so true and yada, yada. So I'm just really enjoying this experience with you guys. And if you do like this podcast, please leave a rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Like, you can find the rating where you can leave a rating for me. And if you share it with someone who you think will benefit, I would love that too. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next episode. Oh, also, if you join me on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and stuff, you can leave comments and like let me know what you want to see next on the podcast or what you want me to talk about and stuff like that. So join me on my social media as well, because I'm very much accessible via my platforms. But okay, I'm actually going to stop talking now. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much, and I pray that you have a blessed day, whatever you're doing. I will see you very soon. Love you so much. Bye.